Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of My Angular Story. I am Aaron Frost, and today we get a chance to talk to Brandon Roberts. Say hi, Brandon.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
This episode is sponsored by Sentry.io. Recently, I came across a great tool for tracking and monitoring problems in my apps. Then I asked them if they wanted to sponsor the show and allow me to share my experience with you. Sentry provides a terrific interface for keeping track of what's going on with my app. It also tracks releases so I can tell if what I deployed makes things better or worse. They give full stack traces and as much information as possible about the situation when the error occurred to help you track down the errors. Plus, one thing I love, you can customize the context provided by Sentry. So, if you're looking for specific information about the request, you can provide it. It automatically scrubs passwords and secure information, and you can customize the scrubbing as well. Finally, it has a user feedback system built in that you can use to get information from your users. Oh, and I also love that they support open source to the point where they actually open sourced Sentry if you want to self-host it. Use the code devchat at Sentry.io to get 2 months free on Sentry's small plan. That's code devchat at Sentry.io.
So for those who aren't aware who you are, can you just kind of say, hey, this is who I am, like just so we get to know you better?
Sure. So I'm Brandon Roberts. I am a Angular engineer at Narwhal, and I'm also a maintainer on the NgRx project. And I used to be on the Angular team, but just recently moved over to Narwhal.
Yeah, you did. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I worked on the Angular team for about a year and a half full time. And
what did you work on with that?
I worked on the docs team.
Okay.
So we wrote all the docs team was over all the guides and tutorials and basically your learning journey when you work with Angular. So I worked on a team of technical writers, and I was more of a kind of a hybrid person on the team, one person who actually build apps with Angular and does some technical writing also. So it was a good fit for me at the time to be on that team and help them to build out like I said, update the guides and tutorials. And the biggest thing I got to work on there, and I'm pretty proud of, is the new getting started.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I was like, did you do that?
Yeah, it wasn't just me. It was the lead on the team. Her name is Jennifer Fail. She was the information architect on the docs team. So it was her, me, and actually Stephen Fluen. He kind of had the vision for what he wanted to do as far as redoing the learning journey for getting started, because everyone is familiar with Tour of Heroes and that whole journey of taking you from basically every major part of the framework and building, basically going through like a workshop to go through that process of building an app. And the main idea about the getting started was to kind of simplify that process for new people, because we didn't want to we don't want people to get tied up when they're trying to learn Angular and get like bogged down with like tooling and like the Angular CLI and dependencies and all these things that you're going to have to learn anyway, and just kind of simplify that process. So we ended up using StackBlitz for the application itself that you use going through the tutorial, and we removed a lot of the steps. But one thing we wanted to keep was to help you learn all the same things.
Yeah, you got to get all the same points in your head.
So we want to teach about components, let you see that making components in Angular is easy. Routing, forms, and deployment, those are the main major sections. So just be able to get you up and running quicker with Angular if you're going to consider it using that. So that was one big thing that I got to work on there.
That's cool. So we have another guest host today. Ryan, come here. So we have a guest host on the podcast. His name is Ryan Frost. Say hi, Ryan.
Hi.
No, speak into the mic, yo.
Hi.
Yeah, Ryan is my son. We're out at Angular Denver meeting a bunch of cool people, and so he's here just playing with his phone today, huh?
He's doing the kid thing.
He's doing the kid thing.
The kids are jumping around, and he just get on the mic. They're like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Hey. They're crazy until you tell them to say something, and then they're
my kids do the same thing. So,
so how did the move to Narwhal happen?
I've only been at Narwhal for about a month now. And the main reason behind that was I enjoy working on the docs team because I like writing and being able to break down like concepts, or being able to look at the framework, look at the technology, and being able to like break that down into more easily consumable chunks for people who maybe not are ready to dive into the code yet. But also, I've always still had that itch to, get back into application development and engineering part of it. So that was my main reason for that I moved on from the docs team, was trying to find something that was more of a mix of like engineering and still being able to do some writing. So Narwhal was a good fit for me. It's been able to let me do both of those things because they have like a platform for documentation for their open source products, and also like a developer empowerment platform that will provide tips and tools for developers to easily get answers to problems. So being able to contribute to those things, and the open source part of it was important too, because I worked on the Angular team for like a year and a half, and being able to work on open source every day, has become like more important to me than it was before. Just because I like contributing back to like open source and helping other developers. So
yeah. So I don't know if everyone knows this, but you and Mike Ryan, you guys grabbed the torch from Rob, and he did this NgRx experiment, and then you guys were like, "Hey, we're doing something like this," and kind of got into it, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are kind of the main. You two are the main maintainers of NgRx. Is that fair to say, or no?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Okay.
It's been a few years. It's been at least 4 years now, 4 years plus. But me and Mike have worked together for a long time, and at a previous job, we actually built like a version of NgRx, like the version of NgRx store, like internally back then at the place we worked at the time. But we couldn't open source it because it's like government work. And,
it's kind of
you got to go through a lot of red tape. Yeah. You got to go through a lot of red tape to do that. So we had that, and that we built that thing. You actually use it in an app, and said it worked pretty good. We had experimented with just using like vanilla Redux and apps before, and it just didn't feel quite as integrated enough. So like I said, we built that version of it, and
so you guys built your own Redux, but observable based Redux implementation.
Yep, it was like it was a flavor of Redux, like I said, built internally that we used. And this was back when like all these things were evolving at the same time. Like Angular was still in beta, I think alpha or beta at that time.
Yeah, it was early.
And we were building that thing internally, and then we had it, we used it in the app, and then around about that time, Rob came out with V1 of NgRx store, and we said, well, we can't do anything with this thing like going forward. And he had this out there in the open, and we jumped on that and started contributing to that. Like I'm pretty sure we've like touched every piece of code that's in there since it's been there now. But retooled a lot of the infrastructure behind store, and ended up adding other libraries along the way. Effects probably the most popular one other than that. But we started with that project. We moved to the open source one. We started contributing to that. I was like, hey, I want to do more contributions since y'all are doing all this stuff anyway, since he doesn't have as much time, being at Google and Angular team and all that. So we were like, sure. So we took that on, and
that's pretty cool.
Ended up, becoming like the maintainers of the project. And of course, the project has grown immensely since then. We have, back then it was just store, and then we introduced effects, and then we got dev tools for helping you debug application, and the list has grown and grown and grown. Router store. I mean, we can go into all the different packages. Entity, just recently NgRx data. Yeah. So the platform has definitely grown just from me, Mike, and Rob. We got new people on the team now. Alex Akrushko, Wes Grime just recently joined. Alex Akrushko and Wes Grime just recently joined the team. Tim DeShriver's been on there for a while. He basically started the same way that we did. He, started contributing to the project, was doing some really good PRs and stuff. So we asked him if he wanted to, join the team officially, and he's been awesome ever since. Everybody who joined the team has been awesome ever since. So it's definitely grown. I almost forgot to mention John and Ward, who also did NgRx data. They're part of the team too. So, and then we got the I call them quote unquote alumni people like Rob and Victor Safkin are still on the team also.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely grown. It's definitely grown more than what I ever thought it was going to be. You know, when you get in there, you get into contributing to open source. And my main reason, like basically how I got into Angular contributing was I wanted to, contribute to open source. I've been like a user for a long time, just growing up with using like Linux on desktop computers and seeing how that open source model worked, and trying to find your niche of where you can give back and contribute back to it. So that was how I got in.
That's pretty cool.
I became a user of Angular, user of AngularJS, and Angular started coming out, and I wanted to get involved in that early. So yeah, that's how I at least initially got into contributing. I went from like consumer to contributor to like now I'm like a maintainer and
giant project.
In a big project that
used by giant companies.
People notice. Yeah. I try not to think about it too much, but don't want to get overwhelmed by it. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm very proud of to be a part. Very proud to be a part of.
It's interesting because I always thought Angular Redux and NgRx store was the same thing. I thought we were using the same words to say the same thing, but apparently there's another project called Angular Redux, right?
Yeah, there was. Angular. I think Angular Redux predated. It might have predated NgRx store. I'm not sure when those two projects or what the timelines are them for, but I think Angular Redux was more. I think it followed the same kind of pattern where it was more of a wrapper around Redux, but not necessarily like integrated with ng modules, and didn't have that level of integration at the time, or the tool as much tooling around it.
It's not observable based, right?
No, I don't think it is.
It's more pure kind of vanilla Redux.
Yeah, I think it's still using.
I think it wraps Redux.
Yeah,
I think it just brings Redux into your project, and then
I think it has a few helper things to get you along, but store was more of a rethink of in an Angular world. How we use that and leverage it. So.
Yeah, I think in a world where you have observables, the NgRx model, the NgRx store model versus a Redux model, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
Yeah, that's what the a lot of people don't know, but the driving thing behind NgRx has always been like bringing reactive libraries. The tagline is reactive libraries for Angular, right?
Yeah.
So
that is one thing. And I learned that when I was in Copenhagen a few months ago. Mike was like, "People think NgRx is the store, but that's NgRx store." I was like, "Oh."
Yep, it's been used. They've been used just like interchangeably for a while now, because that's the main thing that NgRx is known for, is state management. But the
NgRx is meant to be a collection of reactive Angular stuff, not just the store, right?
Right. Yeah, reactive APIs. We've built other things, like even around when we did NgRx store, we had already built some other libraries around NgRx that didn't have anything to do with state management. We built like one for router, and of course, if we go into the backstory of that, we built NgRx router. I just talked about this recently, but we built NgRx router. This was around about the same time they were still like redoing the Angular router.
So you made a reactive router.
Yep.
And
we made a fully reactive router.
That's not the same thing as NgRx router store.
No.
So NgRx router is a replacement for the Angular router?
Well, at the time, it was a different take on what we considered, what our vision for a router in Angular would be. Since Angular was already built on top of observables, we wanted a router that was like fully reactive, observables in, observables out, and that was also easy to use. So we set out and built that router, and it was actually had used it before it was, before it became an actual thing.
Yeah. And
this was around about the same time that they were retooling the Angular router. This was in Angular version 2, and they were redoing the router then. And so we had NgRx router. Then we ended up meeting like at NGConf with a team, the room full of people like Rob and Mishko and
is this before NgRx's NgRx store? Rob made that, or is that after?
This was after.
It's after NgRx store by Rob.
Yep.
you guys are using NgRx Store and you've done a router now.
Yeah, we've done a router.
So you meet with the NgRx team.
We meet with them. They were, they had looked at the router, so they agreed that like the principles of the router were solid. The development of it was good. So we ended up deprecating NgRx router at the time. And then what happened was they took the design, we iterated over the design. It was me and a bunch of people, me, Mike, Ward Bell, Victor Safkin. We wrote basically a design doc to go over like all the ins and outs of what we wanted the router to be at that time. And then basically we went into development. It was semi-secret. The GitHub repo is probably still out there. But we built that router on the side. And I ended up doing a talk at NGConf a few years ago about what the new router was going to be while like Victor was like working on that router. So NgRx router basically became the spiritual successor to, or the Angular router, is the successor to NgRx router.
NgRx router.
Yeah. So we wanted to keep that router, something that was like fully reactive, had observable APIs.
It didn't get the whole vision though, did it?
No, it still got some ways to go. Like the router that we built was much simpler. Like if you think of like query params and route params, and NgRx router, like they were just like services you could inject. So you didn't have to worry about like, is this the activated route that I want to get the params from? Like there was just one set of the two things that are observables. And
I hate that part of the router.
Yeah, the whole vision behind NgRx router was we wanted to, like I said, streams in, streams out. We wanted to make a stream of the URL, turn the browser URL into a stream that, turn that into a set of components, render that on your UI.
Brilliant.
And then the like query params, route params, just those things are simple observables, and you can just get at that data easily. So that was where those are like design decisions that we made in NgRx router up front. Like the way the route config works was similar, but you could this was like pre-ng modules. You could just lazy load components.
Right.
Oh, it was so nice.
Yeah, because like what I don't like about the current router is the activated route, and then it has parent activated routes.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, give me the route params, but it's only going to give me the route params for my current route.
Yep.
So if I'm a child route, I don't have access to the parent route params unless I use like activated route dot parent.
Yep.
And then I got to like make sure I got the right one of those. Like I can't go to one place and get all the params, which, well, I guess there's a setting I can toggle in the router to say flatten all those things.
Okay. You can inherit them, but yeah.
But it really bugs me, man.
Yeah, we would, like I said, we wanted our vision, like I said, it was a lot simpler, and it didn't solve like every use case because it wasn't intended to, right? It was just supposed to be simple, easy to use, fully reactive. So that was one of the biggest things, or one of the libraries that we have done before that wasn't state management in NgRx that we, like I said, we ended up putting it to the side, I guess for the sake of the community.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, that's basically why there's no Angular 3. I said this recently, but because a lot of people don't know that. Why did they skip them from 2 to 4?
Yeah.
So because Angular router was going to be version 3 of it, and they didn't want to rev the entire framework just for the router. Yeah, so they just skipped from 2 to 4, and then here we are. So that guy with the "Where's my Angular 3" shirt on, he should have an answer for that.
We don't talk about it.
That's why we can't talk about Angular.
Can't talk about Angular 3. That's funny. So I'm always curious. I remember how I got into Angular. How did you get into Angular?
Yeah, so like I said, me and Mike had worked together before, and before working in Angular, I had done mostly like back-end work. I had worked at NASA, like building web apps for like mission support, and so we built web apps there. It was. Did
you see Ryan's face when you said NASA?
Yeah,
he was like, NASA?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I built web apps there. It was mainly like PHP and PHP backend apps, or it was PHP across the board because back then we were just rendering everything on the server, right?
Yeah.
So I did that for a while.
So what year is this? Just to context.
2000. I was doing that in 2007.
Okay.
And so I did that for like 5 years. So if we go to 2012, I had moved on from that, and I ended up going to work on a web app that was like a real-time app for monitoring oil rig data. And it was like a mix of, this was back then, I was using like EXTJS.
I used some EXT.
Yeah, the old Sentry.
Yeah, that's what I used with Sentry.
Yeah, Sentry framework. We used that, and it was like a mix of Visual Basic .NET on the back end, moving to C#. And so I did that for a while, and then I ended up doing like a hybrid app that was just using like jQuery and iOS, and it was using Titanium at the time. Just a bunch of different technologies.
Funny. I remember all those.
So yeah, and then I ended up moving to where me and Mike started working together, where we were building. I worked at a game studio.
Synapse.
Now this was a big government company.
Oh.
But this was like a contract within that company.
Okay.
It was the Army Game Studio. And I started out doing PHP development there, like I said, still same thing. And they were an AngularJS shop at the time. So I was doing back in PHP and serving up the front end app. But AngularJS at the time was this was like 2014, I guess. AngularJS at the time it had always been something that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
I was like, I've done back-end development my whole life, and I don't even know how to, I'm not, I wasn't well-versed in HTML and CSS and all that, at least from the front-end perspective.
Yeah.
So I had always been drawn to AngularJS, but didn't have any practical experience with it. But then during that job, I got a chance to start using AngularJS and building apps with it. And we actually built they promote like STEM projects or STEM education for kids. And we built like the web apps to support those games. So with all that front end was built in AngularJS. It was a really big app. So I did that. And then that's how I got into AngularJS, because Mike was already a software developer using AngularJS at the time. So he basically I told him that I was interested in it, so I ended up working on some of the front end stuff with AngularJS, and then I ended up transitioning completely over to AngularJS and not doing like back end development anymore. So that was how I got in AngularJS, and then around that time, AngularJS was in 1.5, 1.6, something like that, and then Angular Beta 2, Alpha 30. I think it was Alpha 38. Was the first one that we had gotten in on.
You're more daring than me, man. I was like, nah, I'm gonna wait.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about working at that job was that we could experiment.
Okay.
Like, we could basically choose our own stack.
Okay.
So we were using AngularJS, and it was like, Angular's going to be coming along. We can start prototyping and everything with it now. And it was like, fine, if that's what y'all want to do.
Back then, you had to make your own build, though, because the CLI didn't exist.
Yeah.
You had to bootstrap the whole thing from scratch.
This was back when we were using System.js
and stuff. Yeah.
No, it was some good time. Good time. We had to use System.js, Webpack, Browserify, all those things.
You had to bring everything in.
Yeah, had to bring everything in.
And that's why I was like, wait, I'm not smart enough to use Angular. Like, there's way too much stuff going on. There's way too many moving parts back during the alpha days.
Yeah. Like I said, back then there was no CLI. You had to roll everything by hand. Even the docs and everything, all that stuff was telling you to roll everything by hand.
Yeah.
And it took a while for the CLI to get integrated with that. But that was how I got into AngularJS. Then I started working with Angular. And for me, like I said, I had wanted to start contributing back to open source. And I was looking at GitHub and seeing the issues and stuff from like the Angular router. And I saw that, when in AngularJS, like UI router was it was the router of choice, right? So I wanted to make the Angular router like the first party choice for developers going forward. So that was like my mission that I wanted to get involved in the project in. So I jumped in on GitHub and started, filing issues and fix or submit PRs for bugs and just trying to help out on the project. And then, like I said, that kind of escalated from there. I ended up talking to Brian Ford, was on the team at the time, and got to talk with him about where they were going with the router, what we wanted to do with it. And like I said, that was my start of my like open source journey, which is like escalated like far and above. where it was when I first started. If you look at my like GitHub, that GitHub page with the green squares on it, it's like blank, 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 and it's like so it's just
solid.
It just blew up. So
That's funny.
It's been green ever since.
So, so besides the Angular docs, is there ever another time when you got paid to do open source, like where open source was your main gig?
No, I still haven't had a full-time, other than the Angular docs, no. Everything that we've done on NgRx has been like free time, nights and weekends.
That's what's crazy is that you guys are just doing that.
Yeah, everybody's like, well,
and you're a dad, and you're a busy person.
Yeah, I got a wife and 3 kids, and of course they're young. They're 7, 4, and 1. So of course they're always. And back when I started, we only had one. I only had my oldest daughter. And so I had, some time to contribute to open source, or even in the evenings and things like that. Yeah. But these days it's definitely more of a challenge to do it. But the good thing is about NgRx, like the state management stuff has matured a lot since then. And I don't have to do as much day-to-day, like hand-holding of it for people filing issues because, of course, we fixed a lot of stuff over time. Yeah. And we got more people on the team. So it's definitely, I still enjoy the process of maintaining the project and being able to help developers with docs, but I get to take more of a team lead approach to it now as far as managing, what people need and trying to get people on block. So
no, it's cool. I know. So 2 questions. I'll just ask them both and then we can talk about them. One of my questions is Narwhal letting you do some of this NgRx stuff during Narwhal time? And the other question is just kind of about NgRx 8. I know that it just came out. I used it. A lot easier to use APIs.
Yep.
So yeah, those are the kind of 2 questions. Like the Narwhal open source, are they letting you do some NgRx stuff during the daytime or?
Yeah, so it's mainly like Narwhal is a mix, right? We do some client work and some Narwhal work, and a part of that is I'll do some of the NgRx work, like I said, triaging and helping people on issues and docs and things like that. But for the most part, it's still like a separate thing. It's not. I don't get paid to work on NgRx from Narwhal from like the project perspective. Now I do get to if there's something that I can work on an NgRx that would help, Narwhal in general, then we can take that feedback and kind of fold it into the platform. So in that case, it's not like I have a set time to work on it, but if there's a need for it, then I can contribute back to the project. That way we're not having to duplicate that code and things that Narwhal needs for like NX specifically. So
that's cool.
Yeah. And then I forgot the second question.
The other question, 8.
NgRx 8. Yeah. NgRx 8, the attack of the boilerplate. No. But yeah, there's
not more. Is there? There's not more boilerplate.
Yes, there's more. No, I'm just kidding. There's
I feel like it was less.
Yes, it's less.
Okay.
So in version 8, we introduced some new APIs for creating actions. Basically, we have for state management, we've completed a circle of the things the main APIs that you use for like actions, reducers, and effects. Because we already had an API to help you create selectors. And the new create action came to us from a different project. The guy's name is Nicholas Jameson. He's a core member on the RxJS project. And he had a library called TS Action that pretty much does what create action and create reducer do in NgRx 8. So we looked at that API, and because it's open source, we talked to him about it and see if we could, take some of that code and modify it and make it a part of the platform.
Fold it in,
Yeah, so him and Alex Akrushko worked on getting that into the NgRx store APIs. So it just makes it a lot easier to do the same things that you would have done in NgRx version 7 and still get like the same things that we promote: type safety, using actions to express events, reducer for state changes, and using the create effect really didn't make any like functional changes, but it's more following that same path of like you can still like the effect decorator is still there, but we were able to leverage create effect because provides us an API that's more composable, and it gives us a good bit of better type checking also when you use that as opposed to a decorator.
Got a new reducer API too, right? Like the reducer's now like an observable stream type thing, right?
Well, the create reducer is a different way of creating the function that you use instead of using like a regular function with a switch case or switching cases. And so it lets you listen for actions, but it generates a reducer function for you.
Got you.
So that
without
way,
the switch. Yeah,
without the switch, because we had gone back and forth many times about using the switch in cases or using like if then or if cases for the reducer function. So what it does is you still use some of the same things. You use initial state, and then you declare these on functions that listen for the actions, and then those are the things that have a callback function. So you do your state changes, and all that does is register a map of the actions that reducer can handle. And so we were able to cut down the amount of like the switch. We basically remove the switch case. You don't have to do that anymore. We actually remove the action unions also. So you don't have to, before with the action classes, you had to like define a union, and you have to pass that union to your effects and pass that union to your reducers. Like all that's gone now. So it's nice. A more concise API to be
probably faster too, because the switch had to switch over every single case statement, right? Whereas now it's just registered by map.
You just, if it's in that map, then you use that. We don't have to worry about did you forget to add the default return in your switch statements anymore? So it's definitely a more concise API that gives you some flexibility there. Like we talked about composability, we can now like with Create Effect or Create Reducer, you could wrap these APIs more easily and customize them even more to your needs. So.
The first time I tried to use it was on a live Twitch, and I was like, "Hey, this is what a facade is, right?" And I was like, which is what you're talking about here in Angular Never, right? The facade of facades. I just kind of showed a facade without NgRx. I was like, you write it this way because when you want to go to NgRx, none of the components have to change. And so I was kind of just showing, hey, now that we've written it, now we can upgrade to NgRx, and the components don't change. The components are the same. And I get it all in, which is not hard. And I create a selector, but I forget to select the selector. And so I created the selector, but then I didn't do select and then pass it the selector. And so I was just so lost on that one little nuance. And I waste 20 minutes. Everyone on the Twitch is trying to help me, and I'm just like, I don't know, guys.
I had jumped in on some of those that you had done before. I said I didn't get that one, but I'm pretty sure I could have pointed it out.
Oh yeah,
but that would have been some.
I remember Wes
probably
was
just jumped out.
You and Wes were both like, "We'll be there." So I was like, "All right, where's Wes and Brandon?" Oh, they're not. I'm all alone. All right, I'm screwed. But I finally figured it out. But it was down the road. I mean,
you've done some NgRx, so you at least have some knowledge of how the mechanics work.
Yeah, and it's frustrating, but now I know for next time. Select your selectors. Well, cool, man. Anything else interesting? I mean, we've kind of found out how you got into Angular, how early on you worked on the team. It was cool to hear about you worked at NASA. You worked for Army Game Studios. You met Mike Ryan. We've kind of learned a lot about you. Is your dad, 3 kids, husband? Is there any other cool stuff about you? Like if I was asked this, I'd be like, I love to ice fish. Is there anything interesting you'd want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I love sports. So I watch basketball, I watch football, I watch just about any sport that's on TV. That's what I pretty much do. And if I have some spare time, because it's usually for me, it's family first. Then try to do some stuff on open source, and then if I have time, I watch basketball. I'm a big fan of Kevin Durant, and so I've been watching the Golden State Warriors for the past few years. But I really enjoy watching sports and just hanging out with family. My usual tagline is, if you see me on Twitter, I'm probably tweeting out some funny GIFs or something like that. I'm on Twitter to have fun.
And you're good on gifts. Too.
Yeah.
Better than average. You're better than average, that's for sure.
So yeah, it's a skill I've honed over time.
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty laid back guy, and I'm pretty reserved most of the time. But like, if you get to know me, you know that I crack a lot of jokes and I have a lot of fun. So
that's good.
So yeah.
Cool. All right, everybody. This was Brandon. If anyone, let's do picks first, and then we'll hand out your contact info. So I'll go first on the picks. So I picked this on Adventures in Angular, but just in case anyone's getting this for the first time, there's this documentary on Netflix called Black Hole Apocalypse.
Okay.
And
sounds scary. No.
It does. But no, it's like the most well thought out explanation of black holes I've ever been able to listen to. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've done a couple of Neil deGrasse Tyson's books trying to not be completely ignorant. Mm-hmm. And like, it gets to a point and it's just all over my head. Like there's a threshold he gets to where I'm gone.
Yeah.
But this did actually really good, and I followed it really well. They did a fine job at explaining black holes, and it was crazy interesting. So yeah, I would recommend that to anybody who's just chilling on a Saturday night. Even like my wife and kids were like, put it back on the next night. Let's finish watching it tonight.
Yeah.
So real interesting. Anyway, that's my pick. Black Hole Apocalypse.
Cool. So I'm gonna go with the easy pick. We just released a new version of NX, which is Narwhal's open source toolkit for like monorepos, and comes with a lot of tooling. I updated the NgRx schematics for that in that release. And one thing to know, we also have added support for React and web components to the NX platform. So whether you're building Angular, whether you're building React or web components, we have support for Node and Express. It has a lot of new features in there. So if you're building Angular, great. If you're building a React, we got support for that too. So I'll plug that real quick.
That's cool. I'm trying to imagine a monorepo where you have one build system that builds a React app and an Angular app. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's all there right together, and all the tooling is there to support it. So really, really excited about that moving forward. And of course, we're going to keep cranking away the features and just helping it get better.
All right. Hey, Ryan, you have a pick? Anything cool? You want to do a pick?
Go download HJs.
What?
Go download HJs. FGTV made it.
Something from FGTV.
I thought he was going to make his pick about bacon or something like that. He was trying to get some earlier.
I pick bacon and FGTV. All right. So thanks for coming on. If anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for you to contact you?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is Brandon T. Roberts. And like I said, I talk about sports and I tweet funny gifts, and I'm there to have fun. Of course, if you want to ask me questions on there, my DMs are open. So, just hit me up.
Yeah, cool. And you're usually at a lot of conferences every year too.
Yep.
So
I'm usually at NgConf. I'll be at Angular Connect this year, doing a talk on schematics actually. So cool. Be sure to check that out also.
Cool. Well, all right, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll catch you. Brandon, thanks for coming on.
Yep.
We'll catch everybody next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly